orchid fans, what's up? Welcome back to my channel. I hope you're doing well, and thank you for joining me today. I've got a CareCollab video for you today, so very exciting. And the orchid that we're gonna talk today about is super exciting, and mine is so tiny it's even difficult to know what this is. But if I turn around and show you the label, so that is Dendrobium senile. So basically the hairy orchid, as people call it. Yeah, I'm really excited about it. As you can see, I've got my setup here, so you probably already know what's gonna happen today. But first of all, let me just introduce the channels that are joining me today, and that is Orchidea and Roger's Orchids. So we're all gonna release our videos today about our Dendrobium senilis, and I want to take this opportunity to actually repot this orchid. So I got this orchid in, I think it was about July, or actually maybe even May or June last year. So it's been over a year since I had it. When I got it, it was mounted and it looked like a pretty good orchid, and I decided to pot it up. And when I started taking the orchid off the mount, I realized that I actually just have a few keikis, which, to be honest, is actually quite common for this orchid. They quite like to be growing keikis, so that's what I got. I had 4 keikis initially. Some of them had quite good bulbs on them, so let me try and take this out. So for example, this one, you can see it's got, the mother plant was quite a big pseudobulb. So this keiki here, it had leaves initially, but it's a deciduous orchid, so they drop their leaves. So that one, as you can see, is still alive. It's got a new growth as well. So it's very exciting. The roots are quite shallow, so these are the newer roots as well that this cake has started pushing out, but I'm hoping obviously for more. So that's one of them, and then I've got another one. Let me pull it out. So as I said, I had 4, but as you can see, I've only got 2 left here. So the other 2, they came with a lot smaller pseudobulbs, and they just kind of shriveled up and died. So and then I've got this one. So as you can see, it was on the biggest bulb. There's actually 2 pseudobulbs, and these guys, this is completely mushy, so I need to get rid of that. I might even get rid of this pseudobulb as well. It is getting mushy now. I see there is a hole in here. Don't know why. Is someone living inside of it? I have no idea. I don't want to find out. I don't even know if I will keep this piece, because if you look at it, the top of it is quite brown as well. Basically, this piece pushed out a new growth earlier this season, and it basically lives on my bottom shelf. So, and it lives kind of under the phalaenopsis, so it doesn't get a lot of light. And it gets slightly cooler temperatures as well. And when I saw the new growth coming out of this piece, I thought I'll move it up into more of a, not the top shelf, but kind of higher up on my shelves, where it got higher sun, or higher light. Sorry, I don't really have sun here. Higher light and a bit higher temperatures. And this new growth just objected and completely dried up and died quite quickly. So I don't know if this will push out any more growths. The growth itself, this growth, I mean, it is solid, but it doesn't look too good. But I think I will just separate it off this piece and keep it. I'll pot them up in the same pot, but just separately. So if this one dies eventually, I can just pull it out of the pot. So when this piece started growing, this new growth, I thought, no, I learned my lesson. I'm not moving this pot anywhere. It's gonna sit at the bottom, just under that phalaenopsis. Clearly it's liking it, so I'll leave it there. So this new growth hasn't really progressed very much. After I kind of saw it, it pushed out those 2 new leaves, and it's got this tiny pseudobulb, but that's pretty much it. It's not really moving anymore. but it's fine. It's still green and healthy, so I'm happy with that. So the reason I want to repot, I mean, it is a big pot and it looks a bit ridiculous, but you can see there is a lot of leca in here, so about that much of leca. So, you know, that's basically my way of crocking the pot. So I only have this much media, which I think was maybe still too much. So, and I also saw a mushroom growing in here before. I think it already died. So you see, even mushrooms can't live in here. But you can see there is sphagnum moss in here, and I try not to kind of get away from moss now. And I kind of try and use ceramis instead. So, and you see there is algae on the side. So this pot is just, I'm just not happy about it. I want to get them out of these, of this pot and put them in a new fresh pot. You can see there is algae on the roots as well. And not all orchids object to algae, but some do. So I'd rather not have it at all. So let me just clean the stag. So I got this orchid from, I think it was Schwerter Orchidin in Germany. And yeah, as I said, it was basically 4 cakeys rather than a mature plant. So I was kind of just trying to, you know, rescue them basically. So I got my new pot prepared. I've got quite a lot of leca here for crocking. I've got microfiber in here as well. And I'll put the tag now so that I don't have to jiggle it in when the plants are in. But my plan for this time is, rather than having it like that, is I will still use bark, and it's new type of bark. I don't think I actually used it before, but this bark is actually made for reptiles, and it's called Orchid Bark. So I thought I'll try it. It does seem very, you know, it's got like a lot of rubbish in it as well, so I'll try and pick it out as I go, so that yeah, I don't have all this stuff in with my orchids. So we'll see. But yeah, I want to keep it in bark. I mean, I think a lot of people try and grow them mounted, and they like to be mounted. You see, the roots are very shallow and they don't go too deep into the pot. So a mount is quite a good idea with them. But to be honest, in my environment, I can't really keep mounts alive. So I'm trying to stay away from mounts, at least until I learn how to deal with them. But what I want to do with this pot as well is, so I've got a lot of crocking. I'll add a small layer of bark, and then I'll just lay these guys on top, and they will kind of be protected by the pot as well, to kind of keep the humidity up a little bit. And yeah, I'll see if that helps a bit more. So, I mean, in terms of its care, or what this orchid likes, it should be a very tolerant orchid, basically. You know, it's got temperature tolerance, light tolerance. It shouldn't be a fussy orchid at all, and that's the information that I can see online. And let me tell you, this orchid is anything but. At least the way I'm trying to grow it, it just objects to everything I do to it, honestly. You know, it's very slow grower as well, and maybe that's what adds the complexity to this orchid, is that it's very slow grower. So if something goes wrong, you know, you're screwed basically. So so that's what I'm finding so far. And you know, as I say, I don't have it for too long, so it's not really much I can say about this orchid. But just from what I was reading, you know, it should be a very easy orchid to grow. And I know a lot of people struggle with this orchid, and hopefully this CareCollab might help. I think Roger had his senile for quite a while, so hopefully we can get very good tips from him. But I know that even he's, you know, struggling a little bit with his senile. So honestly, it's just not an easy orchid to grow. At least that's what I find. So what I've done here as well is I've added some ceramis, not a lot, but just to kind of cover leca, just to while this bark is new, you know, it's not gonna hold water at all, and that's the last thing I want. I want this orchid to get the humidity so that those new growths can enjoy their life here. So now I'll add some bark, and let me put this piece in first. So I'll put it so that the roots kind of go towards the pot, and the new growth will go towards the pot as well. Not that it will outgrow this pot anytime soon, but I'll just lay it on top like that. See, I find it quite complicated to kind of pot them up as well with these pseudobulbs, because I don't want to bury the pseudobulb. It's not alive, you know, it's not gonna grow or anything, but if I bury it, there is more chance that it will rot, and that's what happened with this guy. You see, it's just completely rotted away, and that was completely buried in the media. So I don't want this to happen with this guy, but at the same time I want to cover all the roots that it's got so that it can actually hydrate itself and hopefully even feed itself. I don't think this is a high feeder, so I don't give it auto fertilizer. First of all, because it is a keiki, it's a very small plant, it grows extremely slow, so for me giving it a lot of fertilizer just doesn't seem right. So I feed it light, and if it will eventually, you know, grow bigger and maybe even faster, then of course I will give it more fertilizer as well. I give it seaweed as well. So the way I water my orchids, I've got like a watering schedule, and I water my orchids around 3 times a week, but I just look at every orchid, at every pot, and think, does it need watered or not, right? So if it's got, if it's still got water in the tray, then I won't water it again, because I want the trays to empty, you know, to dry up, and that's when I water next. And then, you know, obviously the pot will dry out as well. So if I water 3 times a week, that's basically every 2 days. So and you know, the way I keep them is, so like this one was sitting in this container, and you can see there is water in here. So and that was last watered on Thursday, and today I'm filming it on Saturday. So so yeah, 2 days later we've still got water here. So it, you know, it doesn't dry out in 2 days. But then every Sunday when I water my orchids, I add something in. So it would either be fertilizer or seaweed or Epsom salts or silicone. So I just switch in between and have an additive. I also use the garden lime, so I would sprinkle on the pods, but I try and do it every couple months to every 3 months. But everything else I usually use once a month and just kind of interchange in between. The fertilizer, that would go in every week. So I'm just trying to separate this off the mother plant, and you know, it came out pretty easily. So I know I'm leaving even less chances for this one to survive, but you know, that pseudobulb, if it keeps rotting, it's definitely not going to help this plant either. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see if this pseudobulb does anything else. I honestly don't expect it to do anything more. It's probably just gonna die off, but you know, I don't really have much to play with here, so I'll take anything I can. So let me place it in here and try and just, I know my hands are kind of covering everything. Let me see if I can do it differently. I always get very kind of focused on what I'm doing when I repot, and I stop talking or just don't look at the camera and what I'm doing. So apologies if it's frustrating for you to watch, but I'm sure, you know, if you've got orchids, I'm sure you can understand it's, you know, it's important to keep these babies happy, so we want to do the right thing. we want to repot them properly. So that's what I'm trying to do here as well. So yeah, that's my fertilizer routine. In terms of strength of the fertilizer, I use rain mix, and I kind of try to give it around 150 to 200 parts per million. So that's what I mix up initially, and basically I've got this 2-liter sprayer, and you know, I use this like a stream setting on it and water my orchids that way. But after I use up the 2 liters, which basically happens after about 2/3 of my collection gets watered, then I just, you know, fill it up with water again. So there would maybe be like a bit of water left in the sprayer, and I just fill it up with just plain water. So basically my fertilizer of 200 ppm dilutes to about maybe, you know, 100 ppm or 80 ppm. And then I water the rest of the orchids that are not high feeders. So like this one would get watered with, you know, with diluted fertilizer. So it doesn't get 200 parts per million, it gets a lot less. So that's the way of, that's how I try and, you know, try and water all my plants at the same time, but also give them different levels of fertilizer. So if it's a light feeder, I'm not gonna give them the same, you know, amount of fertilizer as, for example, for Cattleya. So and that's how I do it, rather than keeping, you know, different buckets or separate sprayers with different amounts of fertilizer and stuff. So yeah, as I said, you know, plants should not be a fussy one, but for me it is. It honestly is a challenge plant for me. So I hope that this will help it. So you can see I planted it quite low in the pot. It's basically all, you know, it is below the top of the pot. So hopefully it will get a bit more protected, and maybe that will make it a little bit happier. Sorry, I just saw a root that hasn't been covered yet, so let me just try and get the small pieces and cover it up. Yeah, in terms of watering, again, so during winter it should get winter rest, so I try and keep the pot a little bit drier than in the summer. I'm growing my plants in Scotland, the UK. It's quite cold here in Scotland, so, you know, orchids can't really grow outside. I grow them all inside. So let me quickly show you the setup. Okay, so this is basically where my senile lives. So this is the bottom shelf, as you can see, and it basically lives right there, just below this big phalaenopsis. So I've got lights there, as you can see, they're all hung up on the shelf. So if it sits below the phalaenopsis, you know, under the phalaenopsis, then it gets kind of filtered light, and it seems to be all right with that. There is a fan, as you can see, right here is a fan running, and each shelf has its own fan. And this I consider to be my cooler grower shelf. And although this Dendrobium senile is not considered as a cool grower, it seems to kind of like this setup here, because my shelves above it are all kind of warmer shelves. And the only reason for that is because, so the lamps that are below, so these lamps, they are basically heating up the shelf above. So it's warmer on these shelves for the plants, whereas the bottom shelf obviously doesn't have any lamps below it, so it's not heating up the shelf and therefore the plants. So it is a little bit warmer up here. I try to keep the humidity here about 60% in this room. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you're having a great day. Please go and check out the other videos. I'll put the links in the description of their videos, so please check them out. I hope you'll have, you know, you'll get some good information from them. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!